The winter wind cuts through Brooklyn like a blade, carrying the scent of rust and forgotten dreams. Former cop Elias Finch walks the abandoned railway tracks, his breath forming small clouds in the frigid air. His boots crunch against the frozen gravel, each step echoing the rhythm of a life that's lost its purpose. 3 months since he turned in his badge. 3 months since he discovered just how deep corruption could burrow into the heart of justice. The small flame catches his attention first. A makeshift fire built from cardboard and old newspapers, flickering desperately against the darkness. Then he sees her, a little girl, maybe 8 years old, sitting perfectly still beside the dying embers. June Wade doesn't cry, doesn't call out for help. She simply watches him approach with eyes that have seen too much for someone so young. "Hey there," Elias calls softly, his voice gentler than it's been in months. "You okay, kid?" June doesn't answer immediately. She studies his face, searching for something. Kindness, perhaps, or the absence of threat. Her small hands are wrapped around a torn photograph, and Elias can make out the edges of what looks like a family portrait. "My mama said never talk to strangers," she finally whispers, her voice barely audible above the wind. "Smart mama," Elias replies, crouching down to her level. "But I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help." He notices the way she shivers, the thin jacket that's nowhere near warm enough for this brutal night. "You can't stay out here. It's too cold." Something in his tone must convince her, because she nods slowly. As Elias helps her to her feet, he sees himself 25 years ago, another orphan child on the streets of New York, learning too early that the world could be cruel and unforgiving. "What's your name?" he asks as they walk toward his old sedan. "June," she says quietly. "June Wade." The name sends a chill through Elias that has nothing to do with the weather. Wade. He's heard that name before, whispered in police stations and courtrooms, always followed by words like missing and presumed dead. But he keeps his expression neutral, focusing instead on getting this child somewhere warm and safe. His workshop in Greenpoint isn't much. A converted garage where he fixes old radios and tries to piece together the fragments of his shattered life. But it's warm, and there's a small cot in the back room where June can sleep. As he watches her curl up under an old quilt, clutching that mysterious photograph, Elias makes a decision that will change everything. He can't leave her, won't leave her, because in those ancient eyes, he sees the reflection of every child the system has failed, including the boy he used to be. Part 2. One night becomes the beginning, 3,500 characters. Dawn breaks slowly over Greenpoint, casting long shadows through the workshop's grimy windows. Elias hasn't slept. He spent the night watching June, making sure she's breathing, making sure she's safe. The photograph she clutched so tightly has fallen to the floor, and he can see it clearly now. A family of 3, the woman's face scratched out with what looks like a nail or broken glass. June wakes with a start, her eyes darting around the unfamiliar space before settling on Elias. He's sitting at his workbench, pretending to focus on an old transistor radio, giving her space to orient herself. "Morning," he says without turning around. "There's milk in the fridge if you want some, and I think I've got some cereal somewhere." She doesn't move immediately, just watches him work. His hands are steady, patient, the hands of someone who understands that broken things can be fixed, given enough time and care. It's a lesson he learned too late in his police career, but maybe not too late for this. "Why did you help me?" June asks suddenly. Elias sets down his tools and turns to face her. "Because someone helped me once when I was your age. Figured it was time to pass it along." It's not entirely true. No one had helped him, not really. He'd survived on the streets through cunning and luck until he was old enough to join the force. But he wants it to be true, wants to believe that kindness exists in loops and circles, that saving her might somehow save the boy he used to be. June gets up slowly, walks to the kitchenette, and pours herself a glass of milk. Her movements are careful, deliberate, the behavior of a child who's learned that sudden movements can be dangerous. "My daddy used to fix radios too," she says quietly. "Before the bad men came." Elias feels his chest tighten. "What bad men, June?" She takes a sip of milk, leaving a small white mustache on her upper lip. The ones in the black cars. They said Daddy owed them money, but Daddy said he already paid. They came back 3 times. The last time, she trails off, her small fingers tightening around the glass. The last time what? The last time Mama told me to hide in the closet. I heard Daddy screaming, and then it got real quiet. When I came out, they were gone. Daddy was... She can't finish the sentence, but she doesn't need to. Elias kneels down in front of her, his voice gentle but urgent. June, this is important. Did you see the men who came for your daddy? Would you recognize them? She nods slowly. One of them had a scar right here. She traces a line from her temple to her jaw. And he called the other one boss. But the boss, he never said his name. Just smiled real mean. A chill runs down Elias's spine. He knows that smile, has seen it in interrogation rooms and courthouses. Vincent Renner. A name whispered in police stations. A man whose reach extends from Wall Street boardrooms to Brooklyn back alleys. If June saw something she shouldn't have, if she can identify Renner's men, June, I need you to think carefully. After your daddy died, what happened to your mama? The little girl's eyes fill with tears, but she doesn't let them fall. She took me to Aunt Sarah's house. Said she had to go talk to someone, make things right. That was 2 weeks ago. Aunt Sarah got scared when the men in black cars started driving by her house. She told me to run and hide. So I did. Elias feels the familiar weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. The same feeling he used to get when a case became personal. But this isn't about justice anymore. This is about survival. His and hers. Listen to me, June. Those men, they're gonna keep looking for you. But I'm not going to let them find you. Okay? We're going to figure this out together. She looks at him with those ancient eyes, and he sees something shift in her expression. The tiniest spark of hope. Together. Together. He confirms, and means it more than any oath he ever swore as a cop. Part 3. The first threat, 3,500 characters. The knock comes at exactly 3:17 p.m., sharp and authoritative, the kind of knock that demands immediate attention. Elias freezes at his workbench, a half-repaired radio forgotten in his hands. June looks up from the children's book she's been reading, her eyes wide with the kind of fear that comes from experience. Back room, Elias whispers urgently. Under the cot, behind the boxes. Don't come out no matter what you hear. She moves like smoke, silent and quick, disappearing into the shadows just as the knocking intensifies. 3 measured raps, pause, 2 more. It's a pattern Elias recognizes from his police days. Professional, calculated, dangerous. He opens the door to find 3 men in expensive suits that don't quite hide the bulges of concealed weapons. The one in front is tall and lean, with the kind of predatory smile that never reaches the eyes. His companions are muscle, broad shoulders, scarred knuckles, the look of men who solve problems with violence. Elias Finch? The tall man's voice is smooth, cultured, with just a hint of Brooklyn accent underneath the polish. Depends who's asking. My name is Marcus Torelli. I represent certain business interests in the city. He steps closer, and Elias catches the scent of expensive cologne mixed with something darker. The metallic tang of violence. We're looking for a little girl, about 8 years old. Dark hair, answers to June. We believe she might have found her way to you. Elias keeps his expression neutral, calling on years of interrogation training. I don't know any kid named June. You got the wrong guy. Torelli's smile widens, and Elias sees the scar June described. A thin white line running from temple to jaw, like a crescent moon carved in flesh. See, that's interesting. Because we have witnesses who saw you near the railway tracks last night. Same tracks where our little June was spotted. I walk those tracks sometimes. Helps me think. Doesn't mean I kidnapped some kid. Of course not. Torelli agrees, but his eyes are cold. You wouldn't do something like that. You're a good man, Mr. Finch. Former police officer. Clean record, mostly. Just that unfortunate business with Detective Morrison's testimony. But we all make mistakes. The casual mention of Morrison hits Elias like a physical blow. The case that ended his career, the testimony that exposed corruption so deep it reached into the mayor's office. Morrison had been his partner, his friend. Had been until a car accident claimed his life 2 weeks after the trial. "What do you want?" Elias asks, his voice steady despite the racing of his heart. "Cooperation. If you happen to encounter this child, you'll contact us immediately." Torelli produces a business card with nothing but a phone number. "She's seen things, Mr. Finch. Things that could be dangerous for everyone involved, including her." "What kind of things?" "The kind that get people hurt when they're misunderstood." June's father made some poor financial decisions. Got involved with people he shouldn't have. Now his daughter carries that burden. We're trying to help her. Make sure she doesn't end up like, he lets the sentence hang in the air. "Like her father?" "Accidents happen, Mr. Finch, to children as well as adults. It would be tragic if anything happened to her because she was with the wrong person at the wrong time." The threat is clear, wrapped in polite words but sharp as a blade. Elias has heard this kind of talk before in interrogation rooms and back alleys. The language of men who make people disappear. "I'll keep an eye out," Elias says carefully. "Good man." Torelli turns to leave, then pauses. "Oh, and Mr. Finch, if you're thinking of involving your former colleagues in the NYPD, I should mention that several of them receive regular consultation fees from our various business ventures. Funny how retirement plans work out these days." The men walk away with the casual confidence of predators, leaving Elias standing in his doorway with the bitter taste of fear in his mouth. He waits until their black sedan disappears around the corner before calling out softly, "June? It's okay. They're gone." She emerges from the back room like a ghost, her face pale but determined. "That was him," she whispers. "The man with the scar. He was there when they hurt Daddy." Part 4. Escape from the city, 3,500 characters. The subway tunnels beneath Brooklyn's smell of rust, rats, and decades of human desperation. Elias leads June through passages that most New Yorkers don't know exist. Maintenance corridors and abandoned platforms that date back to the city's industrial age. His flashlight cuts through the darkness, illuminating graffitied walls and pools of stagnant water that reflect their movement like broken mirrors. "How do you know about these tunnels?" June whispers, her small hand gripping his tightly. "Spent some time down here when I was your age," Elias replies, his voice echoing off the curved walls. "Sometimes the street's not safe. Sometimes you need to disappear." They've been walking for over an hour, following a route that will take them far from Greenpoint, far from the watching eyes of Torelli's men. June hasn't complained once, hasn't asked for water or rest, though Elias can see the exhaustion in the way her shoulders slump. The tunnel opens into a wider space, an old switching station that's been out of service for decades. Elias pauses, listening for sounds of pursuit, but hears only the distant rumble of active trains and the scurrying of unseen creatures. "We're almost there," he says, checking his watch. "Just a little further." "Where are we going?" It's a question he's been dreading. The answer involves more pain than any child should have to bear. But June has already seen too much to be protected by gentle lies. "My family had a house upstate, my grandmother's place. It's been empty for years, but it's still standing. We can hide there, figure out our next move." What he doesn't tell her is why the house has been empty. The fire that took his parents and sister when he was 14. The way the flames lit up the night sky like a second sunrise. The insurance investigation that found evidence of arson but never identified the perpetrators. Some wounds are too deep to share, even with someone who understands loss. They emerge from the tunnels through a maintenance exit in Queens, the city lights sprawling before them like a vast constellation of broken dreams. Elias's car is parked in a 24-hour garage 6 blocks away. He'd moved it there before they entered the tunnels, paying cash for a week's storage. The drive north takes them through neighborhoods that grow progressively quieter, the urban sprawl giving way to suburban enclaves, and finally to the dark forests of the Hudson Valley. June falls asleep in the passenger seat, her head resting against the window, the rhythm of the road finally overcoming her vigilance. Elias drives through the night, stopping only once for gas and provisions at a 24-hour truck stop where nobody asks questions and the security cameras are too old to capture clear images. The clerk is half asleep, barely glancing at the middle-aged man and the sleeping child who could be his daughter. The house sits at the end of a long dirt road, surrounded by oak trees that have grown wild in the years since anyone cared for them. It's smaller than Elias remembered, diminished by time and abandonment, but the bones of it are solid. His grandmother built this place to last, and even the fire couldn't destroy everything. The key is still hidden under the loose stone by the back door, a hiding place his sister discovered when they were children, playing endless games of hide and seek in these same woods. Elias's throat tightens as he remembers her laughter, the way she could find hiding spots that seemed impossible for someone so small. Inside, the house smells of dust and old memories. Most of the furniture is gone, sold or destroyed, but there's still a couch in the living room, still running water from the well his grandfather dug 40 years ago. Elias carries June inside, settles her on the couch with an old blanket he finds in a closet that somehow escaped the flames. She wakes as he's checking the windows, making sure the boards are secure, that no light escapes to advertise their presence. "Is this where you grew up?" she asks softly. "Summers," he says. "My grandmother made the best apple pie in 3 counties. Used to win ribbons at the county fair." "What happened to her?" Elias is quiet for a long moment, staring out at the darkness beyond the boarded windows. "She died in the fire, along with my parents and my little sister. I was at a friend's house that night. Sometimes I think that was the luckiest I've ever been. Sometimes I think it was the worst." June gets up from the couch, walks over to where he's standing. She doesn't say anything, just takes his hand in both of hers. It's a gesture of comfort that seems too mature for her age. But then everything about June seems older than it should be. "We're safe here," Elias says, as much to convince himself as her. Part 5. Return of the Past, 3,500 characters. 3 days of peace. 3 days of June helping Elias repair broken shutters and clear debris from the overgrown garden. 3 days of something that almost feels like normalcy, like the life he might have had if the world had been kinder. But on the 4th morning, as Elias splits firewood behind the house, June's scream shatters the illusion. He drops the axe and runs, finding her in the kitchen, staring at something in her hands with the same expression she had when he first found her by the railway tracks. It's a newspaper clipping, yellowed with age, that had been tucked inside an old cookbook. "That's my mama," June whispers, pointing to a photograph. "And that's my daddy." Elias takes the clipping with trembling hands. The headline reads, "Local accountant and wife die in gas explosion." The date is 2 weeks old. Recent enough that the ink still smells of newsprint and lies. "June," he says carefully, "you told me your daddy was killed by Renner's men. But this says, they're lying." Her voice cracks with the intensity of her emotion. "I was there. I saw what happened. They came to our house and hurt Daddy and Mama ran away and—" She stops, her small chest heaving with the effort of breathing. Elias kneels down, puts his hands on her shoulders. "Tell me what really happened. All of it. From the beginning." The story comes out in fragments, like pieces of broken glass that cut even as they reveal the truth. June's father, David Wade, had been Vincent Renner's accountant for 3 years. He handled the books for businesses that existed only on paper, moved money through accounts that had no legitimate source. But David had kept his own records, a second set of books that documented every transaction, every payment, every life destroyed by Renner's empire. "Daddy said it was insurance," June explains through tears, "in case the bad men ever tried to hurt us. But Mama said it was dangerous, that we should just take the money and keep quiet. They fought about it all the time. The night David Wade died, he had finally decided to turn the evidence over to the FBI. He had called Agent Sarah Chun, arranged a meeting for the following morning. But Renner's men came first. I was supposed to be asleep," June continues, "but I heard voices downstairs, so I snuck out to the top of the stairs. The man with the scar, he was there. And another man, older, with white hair and cold eyes. They wanted Daddy's special book, The one he kept hidden in the basement. Did he give it to them? June shakes her head. Daddy said he already gave it to someone safe. Said they'd never find it. That's when the white-haired man nodded. And the scary man with the scar. She can't finish, but she doesn't need to. After David's murder, the men had searched the house, looking for the evidence that could destroy Renner's operation. They found nothing because David had been smarter than they realized. He had given the book to someone, but not to the FBI. He had given it to his wife, Clara, with instructions to hide it somewhere no one would think to look. Mama took me to Aunt Sarah's house, June continues, but she didn't stay. She said she had to put Daddy's book somewhere safe, somewhere the bad men would never find it. She gave me this picture and told me she'd come back. But she never did. Elias studies the photograph, a family portrait taken at what looks like a church picnic. David Wade is a thin man with kind eyes and ink-stained fingers. Clara Wade is beautiful in the way that grief makes beautiful, like light filtered through broken glass. And between them, June smiles with the innocence that's been stolen from her. The man in the black coat, Elias says slowly, remembering June's earlier words. The one who made your mama disappear. Was he the white-haired man? June nods, wiping her nose on her sleeve. I saw him once more, through Aunt Sarah's window. He was talking to 2 police officers. After that, Aunt Sarah got real scared and told me to run. The pieces of the puzzle begin to fall into place in Elias's mind. Vincent Renner isn't just a crime boss. He's a man with connections that reach into every level of law enforcement. The kind of man who can arrange for inconvenient accountants to die in gas explosions and their families to simply vanish. But Clara Wade had hidden the evidence before they could find her. Somewhere in this vast city, there's a book that contains the proof of Renner's crimes. The question is where a desperate woman would hide something so dangerous, so valuable. June, Elias says gently, think carefully. Did your mama ever mention a special place? Somewhere she felt safe? Somewhere she might go if she was scared? June closes her eyes, concentrating. The church, she says suddenly. St. Mary's on the Lower East Side. Mama used to take me there when Daddy was working late. She said it was the only place in the city where she could think clearly. She always lit candles for her sister who died before I was born. St. Mary's Church. Elias knows it, an old stone building with catacombs that date back to the 1800s. The kind of place where someone could hide something and trust it would stay hidden. The kind of place where desperate people go to pray for miracles. We have to go back to the city, he tells June. We have to find that book before Renner does. Part 6. Search for Evidence. 3,500 characters. The Bronx apartment building stands like a monument to urban decay, its brick facade scarred by decades of neglect and the kind of desperation that seeps into concrete. Elias parks 3 blocks away, scanning the street for black sedans and men in expensive suits. The address came from an old contact at the precinct, someone who owed him a favor and didn't ask too many questions. Stay close, he tells June as they walk through the building's entrance. The lobby smells of disinfectant and broken dreams, the kind of place where people come to disappear from their old lives. They climb 4 flights of stairs, past apartments where televisions blare through thin walls and children cry in languages Elias doesn't recognize. The hallway on the 4th floor is dimly lit, half the fluorescent bulbs flickering like dying stars.
Appartement 4D.
The nameplate reads M. Santos. But Elias knows better. Inside lives Martin Kowalski, former CPA for Vincent Renner's legitimate businesses. The man who got too curious about discrepancies in the books and paid for his curiosity with a new identity and a life spent looking over his shoulder. Elias knocks, 3 short raps, pause, 2 more. It's a pattern Martin will recognize from their previous life, when such codes meant the difference between safety and a bullet in an alley. The door opens to reveal a man who's aged a decade in the 3 years since Elias last saw him. Martin's hair has gone completely gray, his face is gaunt, and his eyes hold the haunted look of someone who's seen too much truth. Jesus Christ, Elias, Martin whispers, glancing nervously down the hallway. What are you doing here? And who's the kid? This is June Wade. David Wade's daughter. Martin's face goes pale. He ushers them inside quickly, turning multiple locks behind them. The apartment is sparse. A few pieces of furniture, books stacked everywhere, and boards over the windows that let in only thin slices of sunlight. David's dead, Martin says without preamble. Gas explosion, they said. But we both know better. June was there. She saw it happen. Martin looks at the little girl with a mixture of pity and fear. Then she's seen too much. Just like her father. Just like me. The apartment feels like a prison cell, and in many ways it is. Martin explains how he's been hiding here for 3 years, living on cash savings and the occasional freelance accounting job that doesn't require real identification. He knows that Vincent Renner has people looking for him, knows that his survival depends on staying invisible. David called me the night before he died. Martin reveals, pouring himself a whiskey with shaking hands. Said he was finally going to do it. Turn over the black book to the feds. I told him he was crazy, that Renner would kill him. Guess I was right. What black book? Elias asks, though he suspects he already knows. Martin walks to a closet, pulls out a fireproof safe hidden behind old coats. Inside are documents, photographs, and a ledger that looks identical to the one June described. This is a copy, he explains. David gave it to me for safekeeping. The original was more detailed, names, dates, amounts. Everything Renner didn't want anyone to see. Elias opens the ledger, and his blood runs cold. Page after page of entries documenting money laundering, extortion, and worse. Names he recognizes from his police days. Judges, politicians, fellow cops who'd always seemed to have more money than their salaries would allow. There's more, Martin continues. David found something that scared him more than the financial crimes. A list of children. What kind of list? Kids who'd been acquired. Orphans, mostly runaways. Renner was selling them to people who didn't ask questions. David found invoices, shipping records. He called it modern slavery, but it was worse than that. June has been silent through this conversation, but now she speaks up, her voice small but steady. Is that why they wanted to find me? Because I might remember the names? Martin nods grimly. David showed you things he shouldn't have. Tried to prepare you for what might happen if he got caught. You know more than you realize, kid. Elias closes the ledger, his mind racing. Where's the original? The one with all the details? That's the million-dollar question. David said he was giving it to someone safe, someone Renner would never suspect. But he died before he could tell me who. His wife, June says suddenly. Mama took it. She told me she was going to put it somewhere safe. Somewhere the bad men would never look. Any idea where? June thinks for a moment, her small face scrunched in concentration. She used to say that God was the only one who could keep secrets in this city. Maybe she meant the church. Martin shakes his head. Too obvious. Clara was smarter than that. She knew they'd search every place that had meaning to David. She would have chosen somewhere unexpected. Elias studies the copy of the ledger again, looking for clues. The entries are meticulous, organized by date and location. But there's something else, margin notes in David's handwriting, references to places and people that might mean something to someone who knew him well. June, he says carefully, your father made notes in this book. Look at this. He points to a series of numbers and letters in the margin. Does this mean anything to you? She studies the notation. SM B3-1987 CW. Her eyes widen with recognition. St. Mary's, basement level 3. 1987 is when Mama's sister Catherine Wade died. She's buried in the church cemetery. Mama visits her grave every year on her birthday. The pieces click into place. Clara Wade didn't just hide the book at St. Mary's Church. She hid it in the catacombs, near her sister's memorial. A place that would mean nothing to Vincent Renner but everything to someone who knew the family's history. We have to get to that church, Elias says, before Renner figures out what we know. But Martin grabs his arm. You're walking into a trap. Renner's had that place watched since David died. He's waiting for someone to come looking. Then we'll have to be smarter than he is. Elias replies, but his voice lacks conviction. Part 7. The Book of Truth, 3,500 characters. St. Mary's Church rises from the Lower East Side like a Gothic fortress, its stone spires piercing the gray Manhattan sky. Elias and June approach from the east, using the cover of early morning foot traffic to blend in with commuters and tourists. The church has stood here for over a century, a monument to faith in a neighborhood that's seen more than its share of sin. There, June whispers, pointing to a black sedan parked across the street. That's one of their cars. Elias spots two more vehicles positioned at strategic points around the church, a classic surveillance pattern he recognizes from his police days. Renner's men are being careful, professional. They're not just watching the main entrance. They're covering every possible approach. How do we get in? June asks. Elias studies the building's architecture, remembering the blueprints he'd studied during a robbery investigation years ago. There's a delivery entrance on the north side. It connects to the basement levels where they store supplies. If we can get down there. They circle the block twice, identifying the watchers and their blind spots. The delivery entrance is monitored by a single man in a gray coat who smokes cigarettes and checks his phone with the casual air of someone who's been waiting a long time for something that might never happen. Wait here, Elias tells June, positioning her behind a newspaper stand with a clear view of the street. If anything goes wrong, you run. Don't look back, don't try to help. Just run. I'm not leaving you, she says with the stubbornness of a child who's already lost too much. You will if I tell you to. This isn't about being brave, June. This is about staying alive. He moves through the crowd with practiced invisibility, the skill of someone who spent years observing without being observed. The man in the gray coat never sees him coming. A quick application of pressure to the carotid artery, and the watcher crumples unconscious behind a dumpster. Elias drags him out of sight, then signals for June to join him. The delivery entrance is secured with a lock that yields to Elias's lock-picking skills, another talent from his street days that police academy training had refined rather than replaced. They slip inside, finding themselves in a narrow corridor that smells of old incense and older secrets. The church's basement levels are a maze of storage rooms and forgotten spaces. Level B1 holds boxes of hymnals and Christmas decorations. Level B2 contains the heating system and electrical panels. But it's Level B3 that holds their destination, the old catacombs where the church's founding families were laid to rest in the 1800s. The air grows colder as they descend, their flashlight beams dancing across stone walls carved with names and dates from another century. The catacombs stretch further than Elias expected, an underground city of the dead that extends beneath neighboring buildings. Catherine Wade, June whispers, reading names from memorial plaques. Born 1965, died 1987, beloved sister and daughter. The memorial is modest, a simple stone marker with a small niche below it for flowers or remembrances. But as Elias examines it more closely, he notices that the stonework around the niche has been recently disturbed. Mortar dust on the floor, scratches on the stone that could only have been made by metal tools. He pries at the loose stones with his pocket knife, and they give way more easily than they should. Behind them is a waterproof bag containing a ledger identical to the one Martin showed them, except this one is thicker, more detailed. This is it, Elias breathes, opening the book carefully. The pages are filled with David Wade's meticulous handwriting. Names, dates, financial records that paint a picture of corruption so vast it takes his breath away. But it's the final section that makes his blood run cold. The children, June says, reading over his shoulder. All those names, are they all dead or missing? Elias confirms grimly. The list contains over 50 entries. Children who'd been taken from the streets, sold to wealthy clients, or simply disposed of when they became inconvenient. Each entry includes a photograph, personal details, and a final disposition. But there's something else in the bag. A letter addressed to whoever finds this, written in Clara Wade's careful script. If you're reading this, then David and I are both dead, and our daughter June is in terrible danger. My husband documented years of Vincent Renner's crimes, but this book contains something more. Evidence of a conspiracy that reaches to the highest levels of city government. The mayor, the police commissioner, federal judges, they're all involved. Renner isn't just a criminal. He's the enforcer for people who think they're untouchable. I pray that whoever finds this will have the courage to expose the truth. But be warned, they will kill anyone who threatens them. Trust no one in law enforcement. The corruption goes too deep. If something happens to me, please find my daughter. Keep her safe. She's the only family I have left, and she's seen things that could help put these monsters away forever. The evidence isn't just in this book. David made copies, hid them in places only June would know. She has the key to bringing them all down. May God forgive us all for what we've allowed to happen to the innocent. Clara Wade. Elias looks at June, seeing her with new understanding. She's not just a witness to her father's murder. She's the keeper of secrets that could topple an empire built on the bones of children. June, he says gently, your mother's letter says you know where other copies are hidden. Is that true? She nods slowly. Daddy made me memorize places. He said it was a game, but I think he knew something bad might happen. There are 3 more books. One in the library where he used to take me, one in the subway station where Mama and I would wait for him after work, and one. She hesitates, her young face troubled. One where? In the place where I was born. The hospital. Daddy said if anything ever happened, I should remember the room number where I came into the world. 4 books total. 4 sets of evidence that could destroy Vincent Renner and everyone connected to him. But getting to them would mean exposing June to even greater danger. And Elias isn't sure he has the right to ask a child to risk everything for justice. Part 8. The newspaper as weapon, 3,500 characters. The escape from St. Mary's catacombs becomes a desperate race through underground tunnels that connect to the city's storm drain system. Elias carries the ledger and Clara's letter, while June leads them through passages her father had shown her during what she'd thought were games of exploration. Behind them, the sound of pursuit grows fainter but never disappears entirely. They emerge 6 blocks away, through a maintenance grate in an alley behind a Chinese restaurant. The owner, an elderly woman hanging laundry, barely glances at them. In New York, stranger things happen every day. We need help, Elias says as they catch their breath. Someone Renner can't buy or intimidate. The newspaper lady, June says suddenly. Daddy used to read her stories. He said she was the only reporter in the city who wasn't afraid of powerful people. Margaret Chun works out of a cramped office in Queens, surrounded by towers of documents and powered by coffee that could dissolve steel. The New York Independent isn't much, a weekly paper with a circulation of 50,000, but it's honest in a way that the major dailies haven't been for decades. Chun listens to their story without interruption, her fingers never stopping their dance across an old typewriter. She's a small woman with silver-streaked hair and eyes that have seen enough corruption to fill several lifetimes. When Elias finishes speaking, she leans back in her chair and lights a cigarette, despite the no-smoking signs plastered around the office. Vincent Renner, she says thoughtfully. I've been trying to nail that bastard for 15 years. Never had enough evidence to make it stick. Now you do, Elias replies, sliding the ledger across her desk. Chun opens it, her eyes widening as she scans the pages.
Jesus Christ.
This isn't just money laundering. This is... She stops, looking at June. Kid, maybe you should wait outside while the adults talk. No, June says firmly. It's my daddy's book. I want to hear everything. Chun studies the child's face, seeing something there that makes her nod slowly. All right, but what I'm about to say isn't going to be easy to hear. She explains how Renner's operation works, the legitimate businesses that serve as fronts, the network of corrupt officials who provide protection, and the human trafficking ring that supplies wealthy clients with whatever they desire. The children on David Wade's list weren't just victims. They were commodities in a market that exists in the shadows of respectable society. Your father was a brave man, Chun tells June. He knew what would happen if he spoke out, but he couldn't live with the silence anymore. Will you print the story? Elias asks. Damn right I will, but I need more than just the ledger. I need corroboration, independent sources, and I need to be careful. One mistake and we all end up dead. They work through the night, Chun making calls to contacts throughout the city, while Elias and June retrieve the other ledgers from their hiding places. The public library book is hidden inside a hollowed-out copy of Great Expectations. David Wade's sense of irony intact even in desperation. The subway station cache is taped inside a maintenance panel that only city workers would normally access. The hospital ledger proves the most difficult, hidden in the ceiling tiles of the maternity ward where June was born 8 years ago. By dawn, they have 4 complete sets of evidence and a network of sources willing to go on record. A former city councilman who'd refused Renner's bribes and been driven from office. A federal prosecutor who'd had her cases mysteriously dismissed by judges who'd suddenly become wealthy. A police detective who'd been transferred to traffic duty after asking too many questions about missing children. Chen's story takes shape like a jigsaw puzzle of corruption, each piece revealing more of the horrifying picture. The headline reads, "Children, Debts and Death, Hell on Wall Street." The subheading adds, "How Vincent Renner Built an Empire on Human Suffering." "This will destroy him," Chan says as she puts the finishing touches on the article. "But it'll also make us all targets. Are you prepared for that?" Before Elias can answer, June speaks up. "My daddy was prepared. My mama was prepared. If they could be brave, so can I." The newspaper hits the streets at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. By 8 a.m., every major news outlet in the city is scrambling to follow the story. By 10 a.m., federal agents are raiding Renner's businesses and arresting corrupt officials. By noon, Vincent Renner himself is in custody, his empire crumbling around him like a house of cards in a hurricane. But Renner has one last card to play. Even from his jail cell, he makes a phone call to men who don't appear in any ledger, who don't leave their names in any record. Professional killers who understand that sometimes the only way to stop a story is to eliminate everyone who knows it. They come for Chen first, surrounding her office building with the methodical precision of soldiers. But Chen has spent her career making enemies of powerful people, and she's learned to be prepared. The office is equipped with hidden cameras that broadcast directly to news outlets around the world. Whatever happens next, it will happen in full view of millions of witnesses. Elias and June are in the office when the attack begins, having refused Chen's suggestion that they hide until the danger passes. They watch through bulletproof windows as black SUVs surround the building, as men in tactical gear prepare for what looks like an assault on a military target rather than a newspaper office. "How many of them are there?" June asks, her voice steady despite the circumstances. "Too many," Elias replies, checking his service weapon. He's carrying his old police-issued Glock, loaded with 17 rounds that suddenly seem woefully inadequate. Chun continues typing, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she uploads the final pieces of evidence to cloud servers around the world. "Whatever happens," she says without looking up, "the story survives. That's what matters." But as the first shots shatter the windows, Elias realizes that survival isn't just about preserving the truth. It's about protecting the innocent child who's already lost too much, who deserves a chance to grow up in a world where justice means something. Part 9. The Great Reckoning and Freedom and Choice, 3,500 characters. The siege of the New York Independent Building lasts 4 hours and becomes the most watched news event of the decade. Margaret Chen's hidden cameras broadcast every moment live to the world. The tactical teams surrounding the building, the federal marshals arriving with arrest warrants, and the moment when Vincent Renner himself steps out of a black limousine, flanked by the best lawyers money can buy. He's older than his photographs suggest, with silver hair and the kind of expensive suit that whispers rather than shouts about wealth. But his eyes are the same cold gray that June remembers from that terrible night when her father died. The eyes of a man who views other human beings as commodities to be bought, sold, or eliminated. "This ends now," Renner calls out through a megaphone, his voice carrying across the street to where news crews have set up their cameras. "The child comes with me, the evidence is destroyed, and everyone walks away alive. Those are the terms." Federal Marshal Sarah Rodriguez steps forward, a woman whose reputation for integrity is legendary even in an age of cynicism. She's been tracking Renner for years, building cases that corrupt judges have dismissed, following leads that dead witnesses can't pursue. But today is different. Today the whole world is watching. Vincent Renner, she calls out, her voice amplified by the news crew's equipment. You're under arrest for racketeering, human trafficking, and conspiracy to commit murder. Surrender now and save everyone a lot of trouble. Renner's laugh echoes off the buildings. Marshal Rodriguez, still tilting at windmills, I see. Do you really think your federal warrant means anything here? Half the judges in this city owe their careers to my generosity. The other half owe their lives to my discretion. Maybe, Rodriguez replies, but the whole world is watching now. Kind of hard to make judges disappear when CNN is broadcasting live. Inside the building, Elias watches the standoff develop while keeping one eye on June. She's been remarkably calm throughout the siege, helping Chan upload files to secure servers and even answering questions from international reporters via video link. Her composure is unnerving. No 8-year-old should be this comfortable with life or death situations. Why isn't she scared? Chan asks quietly, watching June explain to a BBC reporter how her father's ledgers document the systematic exploitation of street children. She's been scared for so long that brave is all she has left, Elias replies. Sometimes that's how heroes are made, not through courage, but through the absence of any other choice. The breakthrough comes when one of Renner's own men, Marcus Torelli, the scarred enforcer who first came looking for June, walks across the street with his hands raised. The cameras capture every step as he approaches Marshal Rodriguez, his expensive suit torn, his face bloodied. I want to make a deal, Torelli announces, loud enough for the microphones to pick up. Full immunity for testimony against Vincent Renner and everyone in his organization. Renner's face goes white. Marcus, remember your family. Remember who pays for your daughter's medical treatments. My daughter's dead, Torelli replies, his voice breaking. Leukemia took her last month while I was out here hunting children for you. I'm done, Vincent. I'm done being a monster. The confession that follows is broadcast live to 43 countries. Torelli details murders, kidnappings, and bribes with the methodical precision of a man who's kept careful records of his own damnation. He names names, provides dates, and offers to lead investigators to bodies that have never been found. But Renner has one final desperate gambit. Even as federal agents move to arrest him, he pulls a concealed weapon. A small pistol that security somehow missed. His target isn't Marshal Rodriguez or even Torelli. It's the building where June Wade sits, the child whose testimony could send him to death row. Elias sees the gun rising, sees Renner's finger tightening on the trigger. Time slows to a crawl as he moves, pushing June behind Chen's desk, drawing his own weapon with the muscle memory of 20 years in law enforcement. But June is faster than both of them. She's been holding one of Chen's old cameras, the heavy kind with a long telephoto lens. As Renner takes aim, she swings the camera like a club, shattering the office window and startling everyone below. I see you, she shouts, her young voice carrying across the street with surprising power. I see you, Vincent Renner. You killed my daddy, you killed my mama, but you didn't kill me. And now everyone sees you. The moment is captured by dozens of cameras. An 8-year-old girl standing in a broken window, pointing an accusing finger at one of the most powerful criminals in America. Renner's shot goes wide, striking concrete instead of flesh. Federal agents tackle him before he can fire again. The trials that follow consume the better part of 2 years. June testifies before grand juries, congressional committees, and ultimately in federal court, where her calm recitation of facts helps convict not just Renner but dozens of corrupt officials throughout the city. Her composure on the witness stand becomes legendary, a child who speaks truth to power without flinching. Elias stays by her side throughout the process, becoming her legal guardian when no other family can be found. They move back to the house upstate, the one that survived the fire that took his original family. Together, they plant a garden where ashes once fell, nurturing life from soil that has known too much death. Years pass. June grows into a young woman with ink-stained fingers and her father's passion for uncovering truth. She becomes an investigative journalist, following stories that others are afraid to pursue. Her first major expose, published when she's 22, reveals a human trafficking network operating out of 3 states. The byline reads simply, June Wade, New York Independent. Elias never returns to police work. Instead, he opens a workshop for repairing broken things. Radios, clocks, occasionally the shattered trust of children who've seen too much. He's found peace in the rhythm of careful work, in the satisfaction of making things whole again. The memorial stands in Manhattan's Federal Plaza, bronze letters on black granite. To those who stood when all others were silent. The names are etched below: Elias Finch, June Wade, Margaret Chun, David Wade, Clara Wade. Visitors often leave flowers, especially small bouquets that suggest children's hands. June visits the memorial every year on the anniversary of her father's death. She brings sunflowers, her mother's favorite, and reads the names aloud, making sure they're not forgotten. Because in a world that often rewards silence and punishes truth-tellers, remembering the brave is the most important work of all. And sometimes, late at night in her apartment overlooking the city, June Wade sits at her computer and writes stories about children who refuse to be invisible, about adults who choose justice over safety, about the price of courage and the greater cost of cowardice. Because she learned long ago that the pen truly is mightier than the sword, especially when it's wielded by someone who has nothing left to lose and everything to fight for.